set to lose my life.
White Lies har lavet et opsigtsvækkende debutalbum.
Farewell to the fairground.
Med intense sange og masser af energi.
These rides aren't working anymore. Let's go home together.
White Lies. Bandet alle taler om.
They're Hollywood's most glamorous, intriguing, and sexy couple.
Brad and Angelina definitely top the list.
Hvordan møder to superstjerner ind i hinanden? Og er deres forhold ligesom os andres? I hvert fald har de masser af børn sammen. Se selv i Brad og Angelinas Love Ride lige her.
They're Hollywood's most glamorous, intriguing, and sexy couple.
Brad and Angelina definitely top the list of the most powerful Hollywood couples in history.
At first glance, they looked like they were made for each other, but were they? How did a small-town boy from Missouri fall in love with the privileged daughter of a Hollywood star?
Fate definitely played a part in this.
Was it fate, or were the odds in their favor?
You could already predict that, at least on screen, it was going to be explosive.
What life-altering choices did they make that brought them together?
Angelina realized that he would be a very solid father figure for her kids.
How could she have let him do a movie with her?
This is Brad and Angelina's incredible ride to finding each other. It's a ride filled with twists and turns, heartache and passion. This is Brad and Angelina's Love Ride. For the most famous couple in Hollywood, it was a huge decision. They would leave Los Angeles, leave the United States, and fly to Africa for the birth of their baby. With their new child, they became the ultimate world family, a family with two compelling parents. But how did two of the most beautiful people alive find each other in the first place?
They've become something almost of a super couple with the way that they've kind of paired this both together.
The answer lies in the past. On December 18, 1963, in Shawnee, Oklahoma, Jane Etta Pitt gave birth to a baby boy, William Bradley.
Brad's upbringing was one that would be seen probably as a lot more traditionally American.
Brad's parents raised their son with simple Southern Baptist values. His father worked for a trucking company and his mother was a school counselor. 12 years after Brad arrived and 2,000 miles from America's heartland, a baby girl named Angelina Jolie Voigt was born in Los Angeles.
Angelina Jolie was something that would be called Hollywood royalty. She grew up very much in the limelight. She was famous from birth and lived a lifestyle that very much contrasted Brad's.
Angelina's father was Oscar-winning actor Jon Voight. When she was just a year old, her parents divorced. Angelina and her older brother James stayed with their mother, Marceline Bertrand, a former model.
I think I grew up like most of us, and you've all this teenage angst, or you feel display. You know, you feel like you're suffering, or you don't have enough.
Being raised in Hollywood can be a tough upbringing. You're exposed to a lot of stuff really young. You have parents who are really busy.
If you grow up with a famous father and he's not really around, you can either get depressed, cling to the first guy who comes along, or you can get tough.
Angelina decided to take the angst and use it. In 1986, the 11-year-old enrolled at the famous Acting Institute of Lee Strasberg. It was located in the heart of Hollywood.
I think that she had her own creative soul and was already, as a teenager, expressing that.
What she couldn't know at the time was that her future love was just blocks away. Dressed in a chicken suit, 23-year-old Brad Pitt was new in town, earning minimum wage working outside an El Pollo Loco, a local chicken chain.
Difficult to imagine, given that he would then go on to become one half of Hollywood's most famous couple.
Living in the same city, this was one of the first times that Brad and Angelina's paths could have crossed, but didn't. For the next 5 years, Brad and Angelina were headed in different directions. At 14, Angelina began her modeling career in LA and New York, while Brad's acting started to pick up. In 1989, he landed a guest spot on the TV sitcom Head of the Class. There, he caught the eye of one of the show's stars, Robin Givens, the former wife of heavyweight champion Mike Tyson. Robin was just the first of many famous actresses Brad would date.
You could pretty well count on him getting involved with female co-stars.
In 1990, Brad's big break came with one unexpected call.
Thelma? What?
The movie was Thelma and Louise, the role a young hitchhiker. Director Ridley Scott told casting director Louis DeJamo what he wanted.
He said to me, I want a dirty, sexy guy. This was a part that we knew if we had the right guy, he's going to become a star.
The best-looking actors in Hollywood came into audition, including Billy Baldwin, Viggo Mortensen, Tim Robbins, Grant Show of the hit series Melrose Place, and a 29-year-old named George Clooney.
George Clooney was pretty good, but he wasn't that sexy guy I was looking for.
Could you imagine George Clooney prancing around with a hairdryer in that scene in Thelma and Louise? I can't.
I brought Brad Pitt in to read for Ridley, and until I saw the humor, and he became a diamond in the rough.
Ladies, gentlemen, let's see who wins the prize for keeping their cool. Simon says, everybody down on the floor.
But Brad Pitt was not the director's first choice.
Ridley said, I think he's a little too young.
Billy Baldwin got the part. It seemed Brad was headed back to obscurity. Then Baldwin backed out to shoot the film Backdraft. The role went to Grant Show, but he dropped out. DeJamo brought Brad back to read with the film's star, Gina Davis. The chemistry was instant.
As soon as I read together and I says to her, is he too young for you? And she says, oh, no, God, you know. And that was it. Not a doubt in my mind that Gina Davis wanted to take him home that night.
Fortunately, my take of the character worked with their take.
The film made Brad a hot young star.
He had the attention of every young female. He was young, and Hollywood was his playground suddenly.
When the movie was released, Brad was 27 years old and dating a 17-year-old actress named Juliette Lewis. The two met 1 year earlier on the set of the TV movie Too Young to Die.
When Brad got together with Juliette Lewis, it surprised some. Although she was a hit girl, she certainly wasn't seen as the kind of conventionally beautiful girl that somebody like Brad would have gone with.
In 1992, Brad and Juliette worked together again in the independent film California.
He clearly likes girls who've got a little bit of an edge.
You look good with a gun, Brian.
But Juliette Lewis probably has too much of an edge. That edge never softened up.
As Brad was dating and working with Juliette, Angelina was still in high school, living the life of a rebellious teenager.
Going to Hollywood, shopping in thrift stores for weird looks, you know, wearing them at school and having people kind of raise an eyebrow.
She was something of a wild child, that's for sure.
Brad, meanwhile, was busy. During the early 90s, he starred in a string of studio hits: A River Runs Through It, True Romance, and Interview with a Vampire. In 1993, Brad and Juliette broke up. Then his next role in the creepy thriller Seven in 1994 solidified his status as a leading man. He also fell for another co-star, actress Gwyneth Paltrow. The movie was big, but the relationship was bigger. Brad and Gwyneth were a high-profile, high-powered Hollywood couple.
They were then the super couple of the time. It was seen at that time that it couldn't get much bigger and much better looking.
They seemed really happy.
Brad even began to look like Gwyneth, something he tended to do with all of his girlfriends.
There's always some degree of physical transformation that goes along with it. When he was with Juliette Lewis, he got longer, darker hair. He was blonde when he was with Gwyneth Paltrow.
They almost became too similar. They had the same haircut, they made the same facial expressions. It got kind of creepy.
As Brad's relationship with Gwyneth was front-page news in '94, Angelina's modeling career was taking off.
She wanted to be provocative, and she just wanted to let it out there and let people think whatever they wanted to think. I remember she had a pet iguana at the time. She definitely had her edge going on.
It was an edge that got instant attention.
There were shoots that she would do, and the pictures would be extremely sexy.
The print ads led to music videos. Angelina worked with artists like Meatloaf and Lenny Kravitz. In 1995, 20-year-old Angelina starred in the high-tech thriller Hackers. Like Brad, Angelina started a pattern of dating her co-stars and fell for British actor Johnny Lee Miller.
If I win, you become my slave.
How could you not fall in love with Johnny Lee Miller? I mean, he is very edgy, a little dark, a little rock and roll.
As Angelina cooled down with Johnny Lee, she heated up with a model, a female model named Jenny Shimizu.
Angelina's great. She actually helped me a lot, you know, confidence-wise.
Angelina did nothing to hide the relationship.
She's very fearless about her choices. She's very committed to whatever she does. And she's not going to shy away from the fact that she was involved with somebody and really cared about them.
Not since Madonna has there been any celebrity who's been so forthright about having relationships with men and women.
But the Jenny thing didn't work out. Angelina chose to go back to Johnny. They married in 1996. And she wasn't the only one seeking a deeper commitment. That same year, Brad and Gwyneth announced they were engaged. But neither relationship was meant to last. By 1997, Angelina and Johnny split up. And after a 6-month engagement, Brad and Gwyneth called it off too.
She even has talked about how she really didn't know that much about relationships, and she kind of screwed it up. He's just not a guy you can mess with. You're either with him or you're not.
In the late 90s, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were all over the globe, all over the press, but not together yet. Personally, they were both hurting from broken relationships, but professionally, they were thriving. Brad had become an A-list actor in high demand, and Angelina was a model and actress on the brink of stardom.
She completely took Hollywood by storm. Not only was she ridiculously beautiful, but she was also incredibly talented.
Her big jump happened in 1999. Angelina delivered a stunning portrayal of supermodel Gia Marie Carangi in the 1998 HBO film Gia.
She created this character who you really could not take your eyes off her. And she was, naked, having sex with another woman in that role. She went full tilt.
At this time, Angelina was sexy and single, but stayed hopeful about love.
I think that the best thing about love, the best thing about a relationship or any kind of, is to kind of, drive each other, be passionate, trust each other.
Meanwhile, the story around Hollywood focused on Brad's new love, Jennifer Aniston. The two met during a quiet dinner arranged by their agent, who thought Brad and Jennifer might hit it off. They did. Brad and Jennifer were the perfect couple, a natural. It seemed to some like they were destined to be together.
One of the biggest stars in television, one of the biggest stars in movies get together, it's kind of a thing.
At the time, Angelina was making some important career decisions that would help chart her life's course. She turned down a huge role in what became a mega franchise, Charlie's Angels.
She tends to choose things based on where she is in her life.
Instead, Angelina chose to take the Jerry Bruckheimer film Gone in 60 Seconds. She played a sexy car thief alongside Nick Cage. The film was a hit, and so was Jolie.
Men wanted to make love with, to her, and the women wanted to kick butt alongside her.
Angelina's next role in Girl Interrupted earned her an Academy Award nomination, and she was the star of the 2000 Oscars. Angelina won for Best Supporting Actress. She celebrated with her date for the evening, her brother James.
He and I were each other's everything.
The pair seemed extremely affectionate.
There was the matter of this kiss, this happy congratulations kiss that seemed to not only be flush on the lips, but be a little lingering for a sibling thing.
The whole idea of her going on the Academy Awards and saying, I'm so in love with my brother right now. I mean, she had to know what was going to come from that.
But Angelina wasn't fazed by the controversy. With Oscar in hand, she enjoyed her win at the post-Oscar Vanity Fair bash. It was another opportunity for Angelina to cross paths with Brad, who showed up just moments later with Jennifer Aniston. But there was no love connection that night. While Brad and Jennifer became inseparable, Angelina became involved with another Oscar winner, Billy Bob Thornton.
Laura Dern had been in a long relationship with Billy Bob. Suddenly Angelina's in the picture. Boom!
She thought that she was still dating Billy Bob until she realized that he had married Angelina.
Angelina and Billy Bob met on the Canadian set of Pushing 10 in 1998, a year earlier.
Oh, Angelina and Billy Bob.
That was really one of the great celebrity matchups.
There were two freak flags flying, we'll put it that way.
In May 2000, Angelina and Billy Bob shocked everyone with a quick wedding in Las Vegas. The ceremony included white roses and blood swapping.
Angelina and Billy Bob had such a bizarre relationship that it almost seemed like it just might last.
I mean, it became this kind of goth, crazy, tattoo, biker love kind of thing.
The newlyweds wore vials of each other's blood around their necks.
I think we do things that blow other people's minds more than our own. I think we're pretty used to it.
Only 3 months later, Brad married Jennifer Aniston in a ceremony that was very different from Angelina's. The July 29, 2000 wedding was filled with Hollywood's A-list. It was a big event with big-name guests.
Helicopters were almost crashing into each other just to get footage of this thing.
Brad and Jennifer, Angelina and Billy Bob, they were now two married Hollywood couples, and as opposite as they get. Angelina's man was a wild rebel. Brad's girl was everyone's favorite friend. But what forces would undo these couples and bring Brad and Angelina together? Angelina's career continued to soar throughout 2000 and 2001. She took the role of Lara Croft Tomb Raider for the chance to play an action hero.
I love these kind of movies, and it's such a challenge to do, and they're hard to do.
I think everybody liked the idea of going in their droves to see Angelina as a heroine, somebody who was saving the world.
But she didn't know at the time how the part would affect her view of the world. Shooting in Cambodia exposed this privileged daughter of Hollywood to devastating third world conditions. She saw children in desperate need of help. 27-year-old Angelina was shaken by what she saw and committed herself to humanitarian affairs. This commitment led to her real-world role as a UN Goodwill Ambassador in 2001.
I'm so happy to be now finally, to be officially working with UNHCR.
Angelina's work took her all over the globe and was a far cry from her glamorous life back in Hollywood. January 2002. Brad and Angelina crossed paths in the same room. It happened at the Golden Globe Awards in Beverly Hills. Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob arrived first.
Angelina, how about a kiss?
Billy Bob was nominated that night for his role in the movie Bandits. 20 minutes later, Brad and Jennifer arrived. Jennifer was nominated for her sitcom Friends. Inside the event, Brad and Angelina had a clear view of each other and their spouses.
It would seem that destiny was going to unite them somehow. This just wasn't the time for them to meet.
6 weeks later, on March 10th, Angelina adopted a 7-month-old boy from Cambodia. She named him Maddox.
It's certainly the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and the most exhausting, and the most, it's pushed me to, especially working and balancing everything, and but the greatest joy I've ever had. In July of 2002, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were two huge stars on two separate romantic rides. Brad was married to Jennifer Aniston, while Angelina was hitched to Billy Bob Thornton. Then, Angelina made a decision that would bring her one step closer to Brad. After just 27 months of marriage, and shortly after the adoption of her son Maddox, Angelina filed for divorce from Billy Bob.
Angelina said that Billy Bob was not ready to adopt a child with her and that she called it tragic. And she suddenly found herself a single mother with a 1-year-old child, exactly as her mother had been. I think that that whole episode was very painful for her.
At the same time, Brad's relationship with Jennifer was about to be tested. In April of 2003, Brad left Los Angeles for a starring role on the action film Troy that took him all over the world. The shoot kept Brad away from Jennifer for 9 long months. Reports started to surface that Brad's marriage might be in trouble.
They clearly were both working a lot, and that was a huge problem. And there are certain things that bond people. Children is absolutely one of them. And I think the fact that they didn't have that binding something made it very difficult.
Much of the press focused on Brad's desire to have kids.
And when everybody is speculating about your private choices and starting a family and how a relationship is beginning to end, it's nightmarish.
Then, the two separate worlds of Brad and Angelina were about to collide. The amazing chain of events started in the fall of 2003. Brad signed on to star in the film Mr. and Mrs. Smith, opposite Nicole Kidman. The film's director, Doug Liman.
I knew it was too good to be true, and obviously it was.
Then, fate took over. Nicole, who was busy filming Stepford Wives, had to drop out of Mr. and Mrs. Smith because filming ran longer than scheduled.
And it would have been a very different movie had she not remained with Stepford Wives.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith's producers scrambled to find a new star. Their top choices were Cate Blanchett and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Catherine Zeta-Jones took the part. Then, Catherine dropped out. Without a female co-star, Brad bailed on the project. At this point, Mr. and Mrs. Smith was dead. Then, fate stepped in again, and Angelina Jolie signed on, prompting Brad to come back,
just days before cameras were set to roll.
You could already predict that, at least on screen, sparks would fly and it was going to be explosive.
The press got an early peek at that chemistry on the set from these behind-the-scenes photographs. There seemed to be a magnetism between Brad and Angelina.
Nobody was saying yet that it was romantic, but it was definitely obvious that these two had something.
January 2005, exactly 1 year after Mr. and Mrs. Smith began filming, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston announced they were separating.
The whole Jen, Brad, Angelina triangle was completely on fire. It made everybody go crazy in Hollywood.
The attention now focused on one question. Were Brad and Angelina just friends or in a romantic relationship?
Brad's sweet. He's a really great actor, and he's a really good guy. You know, there's no big crazy story.
But the story was big, and the world could see for the first time in these photographs captured on a remote African beach. The picture showed Brad and 3-year-old Maddox playing in the sand, Angelina close by.
They were very clearly letting people have pictures of that situation. He wanted people to know in the world, like, I'm doing the best I can in this situation. I'm trying to be a good guy.
I think Angelina realized that he would be a very solid father figure for her kids.
On January 11, 2006, an announcement came. Brad and Angelina were not just a couple, but Angelina was pregnant with Brad's baby. Brad joined Jolie's family just days later, as Angelina's 2 children, Maddox and newly adopted Zahara's names, were officially changed to Jolie Pitt. In April of 2006, a pregnant Angelina flew to Africa. She was joined by her family. While in Africa, Angelina gave birth to baby Shiloh. Almost a year later, Angelina adopted a 3-year-old Vietnamese orphan she named Pax Tien. The boy's name was also changed to Jolie Pitt. In the end, Brad and Angelina coming together seemed like destiny, a roller coaster love ride that fate controlled the whole way.
Love should be that you meet somebody that opens your eyes to things and inspires you and enhances who you are.
You make your life what it is, but there's always a point where fate comes in.